So, welcome to the Finance and Ops Committee meeting of October 2024. Does anybody want to speak from the public gallery? No? Okay, good. So we'll move on from item 1 to item number 2. Apologies for absence.
Charlotte.
Captain Lucas, give her apologies.
Good. Item number 3. Declarations of interest and dispensations. Members to declare any interests or registered interests but not notified the Monetary Officer of, to receive written request for dispensation and to grant any request for dispensation as appropriate. Anybody? No. We'll move on to item number 4. Confirmation of the previous minutes. These are for approval. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. Second?
Yeah, I'm quite
All
second
in
that.
favour? Yeah. See who's. You'll sign
Every page is.
and date it.
Yes,
It's
please.
the 21st. Is it still?
Is the 21st still?
Is that good pages?
1, 2. That's like a right. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Okay, good. Item number, item number 5, approval of payments and signatures of the monthly bank reconciliation. So the bank reconciliation stated Unity Trust, September 2023. Anybody?
You need someone else to sign it because unfortunately you can't sign it because your chair's account. So
Right, okay.
we had this problem last time.
Okay, I'm sorry. So if it's approved, somebody.
Someone else
Move
needs to
against it.
sign them. Is it you?
Have you got them? Yeah. So we're okay with that one?
I'll show them to you, but there's 2 there.
Yeah.
You right?
So, who needs to sign? Only just one signature, is it?
Sign. I'll come round, it saves me shouting. Saves me shouting across the room. Sign that, and then you need to sign that figure to show that that figure matches that. Same on that one as well. Oh, wait, there's a way there. Thank you very much. Underneath.
Nice.
It's going down fast. This is nice and going. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the bank reconciliation statement, CCLA, September 2024.
I'll just throw it in.
Has that you done that one as well? 2 together, right? So on to
Done
the
it together.
report. Board ledger September 2024. I'll give you time to play that. Right. Anybody got any? No? Nothing to say?
No.
Right.
No.
So this is signed?
Proposing and seconding, both from them.
Right, so.
Sorry, can I just check, which is the Board ledger? Is that the one that came in afterward?
That one.
Landscape one.
The statement of accounts for payment?
The spreadsheet.
Yeah,
Schedule of
schedule of
accounts
accounts
payments.
Yeah, okay.
It seems to have missed some pages off. Got messed off a couple of
some
times.
lines.
That one,
Right, so propose we accept that.
yeah. You don't need to sign this one.
Right, seconder?
Yes.
Yeah, Chair, all in favour of accepting those? Yeah, that's carried. Select.
There is also, it's not on the agenda, but there is also a detailed income and expenditure and an annual budget which I sent out on Friday because it was updated.
Well, I've got those here,
Yeah, then this is different
Oh,
to
to those
that
ones.
one.
Right, so which one, so this one here, we need to approve this one.
Well, no, just if you have any questions.
Any other questions?
Is that the one that was circulated on Friday?
Yes.
That's this one
Sorry, it was late.
I just had a question on projections, how they were projected. Is it just that, because it's 6 months, is it just that you double it, or is it
No,
is it something that's been built into?
I have, I have a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I've had a look at this. This is about actual expenditures to date,
Yeah.
and then
I
some
have,
bit projected.
I haven't sent the spreadsheet out because it's,
No, that's fine, that's
I
fine.
have received to date, committed receipts, estimated receipts, and then the totals which I then put into here.
It's good.
So, and I do have notes which I update every month. I can send them out to people.
No, it's fine, and it's just, I mean, obviously it only really comes in when you're forecasting for month 12 and you're trying to look at how much is left in general reserves to carry
Not
over.
at all.
So,
Yeah.
you know, well done on doing it for 6 months.
So, at the moment, according to these figures, this is predicted. Predicted balance in hand as at the 31st of March next year is 155,000.
155.
You had £1 million to start with,
155, okay.
but obviously that's predicted.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
It may be, I think it will go lower.
So we just need, do we need to accept these then?
No, they're just there for you to ask
So
questions and things.
is that all the budget?
I'm assuming those, we'll go into more detail on that when we get to the budget, the budget discussions, will we? Yes, you will.
Yes.
You can do
You can do.
on that. There's an opportunity there to delve into.
Yeah,
rather than yeah.
now, it'd be easier to leave
Yeah. until we've got to talk about
If
the
you would
budget.
like to see the spreadsheet that I run and the costs, I'm quite happy to
No, we're talking budget.
I mean the summary for the budget for this year. Yeah, that's fine.
That'd be all right, wouldn't it? So we've done everything we need to do on that item?
I think so.
The mayor's very expensive this year.
Not yet. So item number 6, risk assessments. So we had risk assessments. To receive and consider approving a further set of revised risk assessments in relation to grounds maintenance and office activities. And they were all included as far as
I haven't printed them off because there's quite a lot.
Yeah, so this is just about our grounds maintenance guys operating leak blowers, etc. At the last meeting, we saw about 8 or 9. There's another 8 or 9 now. Nothing particularly clever in them.
No.
Yeah.
That was good. So
All makes sense.
Yeah.
good.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Given some of the statistics that are rising at the moment, is there a COVID risk assessment that's all of this lot?
No.
Okay. Might it be useful to have one?
I can write risk assessment about anything. Legs on tables.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Yeah.
what we've got at the moment is we've got a 25% increase in deaths from COVID because of a new variant
Right.
that the Department of Health is currently considering what to do with that. And they've now expanded the COVID vaccine to a lot of people, including people like me, rather than people who were very, very, very clinically vulnerable. So it's just to be aware that this is one that they're very concerned about.
Yeah. Okay. So they'll probably give us some guidance on that.
We haven't had any official notifications from.
I will step behind
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, as Lee said, we can write a risk assessment about anything, but there's a huge amount of risk. I appreciate what you're saying, but there's a huge amount of risks that we could try and cover with documentation. I'm not sure how not sure how we'd cover that one in terms of risk, other than we follow government guidance, which is if they tell us to.
But also, we have a responsibility to staff who may be clinically vulnerable, and so therefore there needs to be things like that taken into account.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Yeah. Yeah, later.
I'll just send it.
Yeah.
Right, so, other than that,
I'm not a microbiologist for nothing.
right. So I propose that we accept the risk assessments. As they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and seconded and all.
I'd already written it down.
Yeah, I know. You're ahead of us.
Do we
Item,
need to thank anybody for putting in?
doing all the work.
No.
Yeah.
The thanks is called a paycheck at the end of the month.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right, so it's a lot to do with one
That's-
fell swoop.
Well,
It's a lot of paperwork.
Here's a view from me. If you thank staff publicly, you should be prepared to rebuke them publicly.
Right.
You wouldn't rebuke them publicly, so why thank them publicly?
Oh,
If you say all that, you could ring somebody up and say thank you very much personally, but you know, if there's members of the public here, you got to think about the other side. If you're going to rebuke people, you wouldn't do that. So
Say something else, yeah.
just play it straight back.
Works.
No, it's fine. Okay, so I'm on to item number 7, which is, there you go, to receive and review a report and draft budget proposals from 2025 to 2026 from the RFO for discussion. We've had budget spreadsheet with 3 different budgets, the same as last year, essential only and everything, and we've had accompanying notes. So what I'd like to do is ask the RFO to just go through briefly the format of it, explain anything that you think needs explaining, and then we'll sort of open it to questions for people to sort of make points to raise things they think need raising in the budget as a first sort of discussion of what we've got. So, Kate, over to you.
I'm telling you watch too much movies because I put the good, the bad and the ugly. The town council is running out of money. As we've just said, we started with £1 million at the start of the year. At the end of March, I put an estimated balance of about 100,000. A few minutes ago, I said 155. You're going to be looking at about 100,000 left in your bank at the end of March. The reason it's gone down is because the town hall costs. They were initially covered by funding from Baines and the Public Works Loan, but we're now looking at another 300,000 to 400,000 to come out, which is coming out of your general reserves. And because of that, your general reserves has dropped considerably. So your next budget, I would strongly recommend, and is important, that you put your general reserves back up again. Otherwise you are going to be struggling for money. On my budget, I wrote about the budget. You've got the last 3 years, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25. I've got a committed column in yellow, which those figures are contractual. You can't really change them. They're relatively fixed. They're slightly variable, but they're relatively fixed. And then you've got your wish list, which is figures you've had last year, or councillors will requested what they would like in their budget. You know, as you mentioned earlier, the neighbourhood plan, that's in there. If I put everything in that people have asked for, it is about an 85% increase. You've got detailed notes on everything. I did write this about a month ago, so I will try and remember. So you've got three budgets, 3 options. It's going to change. You've got 84.5% with everything in it. You've got option B, which is just essentials only. You stand still for a year, you increase your reserves, but it's not good for a council. If you just stand still, you don't do anything, you need to do something. And then the third option is, I've just used the figures you had in last year. So you're doing something, but that's still a 50% increase. Some councils have said they don't want a huge increase, but in order for the council to carry out projects and run effectively, unfortunately one is going to be needed. It's now up to you to meet in the middle and start discussing the budget. I have notes. I did write them over a month ago, but I will try and remember why I put them. They're fairly detailed. Why I put things in there.
Okay.
If you would like, I can put it up on the big screen. If you would like me to, I can move down and put it on
Have
the big
we-
screen.
All got access to the. I printed them out. Cherry printed them out. Have you got access to them? Yeah, Sean's
No.
got them. So I think we've all got
That's right. Okay.
printed versions. So
So, first of all, let's establish what we're actually doing here tonight with regards to this. I mean, we're obviously just going to review it and comment on it.
yes.
Are we then looking to be putting forward recommendations to full council? Is that our objective tonight?
No, well, what I would suggest you do is do it in some relatively broad brush elements, okay? So you say something like, well, we know we've got this number of staff, so staffing is going to be roughly what it was last year, 20, so you don't need to discuss the detail. We could refine it for you, yeah? So some of the items like insurance, you'll know that's probably sort of non-negotiable.
Well, we know what's non-negotiable.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been very clearly laid out by
Yeah.
Kate. So yeah, so there's some red flags in all of this. I guess we'll concentrate on those.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say you need it precise. You don't need to
No,
define
no.
precise. You say that's a bit too much. Can you rethink that? Or that's not enough. Can you rethink that? Or
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I'm thinking that, you know, the obvious one for full discretionary is the grant funding, which was two lots of £10,000 a year. Yeah, you could put that at 0. You could leave it at 20,000. But then, so for something like that, an indication of yes, we'd like some grant funding, but not if it's putting the council tax up by 10%, or no, we want really lots. We don't care if the council tax goes up. So it's just some.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense, Sean?
Sorry, Lee, can I interrupt? That bottom figure, the general reserve figure, which I have put in yellow because you do need to put the reserves up, is actually to be 9 months. So that figure is slightly negotiable because that can come down a bit, but it's all dependent on what figure you have at the end of the year.
So just to clarify a couple of points then, first of all. So if we maintain the minimum level of 6 months, what is that number for the reserve? You're saying that by the time we get to April, it'll be down to 145. Are you saying that it should be 300, roughly 300,000?
6 months,
Be
No.
280.
Or you're saying half the pre-sales?
290.
it's about
Yeah.
half the preset, yeah, it's about 6 months, it's half the preset. So you're looking at between 250 300 in your general reserve.
And the number that you're quoting there, 145,000, you're saying that's how much would be left in
No,
both
the
accounts?
281, the 155,000,
Hmm.
yes, that is what we left in both accounts, that is the...
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So, sorry, okay, good question. Are we talking about what's in the bank account or what's left in the accounts?
The 155,000 I mentioned earlier, which is what will be left money-wise in both accounts.
Yeah, my point is, so in your brief you say at the end of the year we had 1 million in accounts and we've got 145,000. Well, actually, the end of year accounts talk about the general reserve being at a figure of 280. So we're getting spend mixed up with revenue budget.
I think, I think what's the way it's been, it's quite clear the way it's on here. When we get to the end of the year, before we start receiving more preset money or any other incomes, which you don't actually have anyway, we're going to be down to about £150,000 in the bank. And that includes our reserves, that's everything.
That's everything.
And that's quite a dangerous position for a council to be in. We know our reserves should be nearly double that, and probably more than double that if we're going to apply the 9-month rule, which would be the sensible way for us to go. We're not going to achieve that because. Okay. So secondly, then.
Well, sorry, can we deal with that point in terms of, because personally I think what you've suggested, I don't think that 9 months is viable. And perhaps one of our recommendations could be that the reserves is 6 months, that we opt for a 6-month reserve
Well,
as opposed to a
I don't-
9-month reserve.
I think it's dependent on how the rest of the conversation goes as to how much we can actually get our reserves up to.
Well,
I think that may be.
it's
I agree with you. I think it's.
my approach would be, let's start off by setting reserves and then work our way backwards, because then that shows us how much money we've got, and if we want to raise some more money to do more projects, then that will obviously then impact further on the precept. But it's up to you. If you want
Yeah,
to do it
yeah,
that way,
yeah.
then that's
No,
fine. But to my mind,
okay.
it helps if we set the reserve level
I
first,
think-
as opposed to 9 months, have it as 6 months, I would suggest, because
Yeah.
otherwise, as you quite rightly pointed out, sure, I just don't think it's viable to set 9 months reserves.
I mean, yeah, I mean, looking at this, I mean, I've been through the wish list, and to be honest, I mean, I think this is, I think we need to acknowledge the position we're in here, and so far as council seem to have done. We're taking money. I mean, what is the? So do we have a total figure for the town hall now? I mean, an actual total figure.
I'm just going to jump back a bit, sorry, because I preempted the question. If I took, I will come back to you in a minute, Sean. If I took the general reserves down to 6 months, that would be that changed that figure to 100,000.
Yeah,
Because
so that's-
you're going to have about 100,000 there. So if I took it down to 6 months, you need 100,000 in general reserves. On the everything, because I'm working on the everything budget, it brings it down to 52.25% increase with everything. That's just me working out. Back to the town hall.
So basically, if we went for 6 months reserves, then that line on general reserves would come down from 281,000
to about 100,000. This is off the top of my head, it's about
Yeah,
100,000.
no, that's fine. This is just rough ideas at the moment.
And it brings the increase down to 52.25%. Sorry, back to your town hall. What did you want to know? How much you've spent today?
I just want to know what the total is going to be, because it seems, you know, we're playing with numbers, and we just need a total, including all the management costs.
We don't know what the grand total is going to be, because
Okay.
obviously we've gone over budget, we've gone over time. Until that final bill comes in, I can't give you a figure.
Okay,
I'm looking at around 2 million.
about 2 million.
That's on the overestimated side. I'm
You're
looking
talking about the overall project or in the year?
the overall project. That is everything.
Okay.
That is A&G, that's professional fees, that's making the town hall ready for us to move in, that's
Okay.
everything.
And you've anticipated that expenditure in this budget?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah,
it's anticipated in the budget summary for this year, because the money's going to come out before March.
Yeah, so basically, any money that is going to be owed on the town hall project is coming out of this year's budget, except
The 75,000.
you put line item 4924, you've got 75,000, and then
Because
20,000, and then 95,000.
what note number is that? Because I looked at the notes.
47.
47. Thank you, 47.
I'm working on the old stuff, I'm afraid.
The 75,000 in there is in this yellow, because within the contract, this is off the top of my head, there is a 5% retention, which 2.5% gets paid within 3 or 4 months after completion. So where that falls, we don't know. And then the other 2.5% gets paid 12 months after completion. So you need it in the budget because you're going to have to pay it. The 20,047, I've got my notes for 47. The 20,000 was a recommendation from a councillor to investigate sources of funding for phase 2. That's the 20,000. Total 95. That's what 20,000 is. Anyway, so
Sorry, 20,000?
it was a big. When we sent the emails out saying, hit me with recommendations, hit me with things. Somebody came back, went, could you put in 20,000? I'm not naming names.
No,
but things.
that's fine.
They wanted 20,000 to investigate sources of funding for phase 2.
I don't know. I wonder whether it's better to, you know, I think
So I put it in.
yeah. I don't know whether we should be looking at the everything as the guideline. I think I get a sense that there's a feeling in the also council that we don't want to raise precept more than we have to. We are happy with the services that we offer. We'd like to do more, but I think most of us, or if not all of us, the sense I'm getting is that we're quite responsible with the money. The everything was like if we just had the opportunity to do, you know,
Yes.
and we weren't having to pay more to the town hall, we won't have to do, well, this is what we think we would like to spend it on. So I think the everything seems to me almost like a wish list sort of perfect scenario, whereas the same as last year, I think gives us more scope. What we're doing, we're quite happy with the things that we're doing. We're not, and I think most of us know that there are going to be costs with things like grounds, increasing cost of grounds, maintenance, town hall, we need to allow for. I think there is an understanding that the reserves need to go up and quite significantly. So I don't think, on reflection, I think most of us, if we put stuff in for the wish list, like everything thing, then we'd go, oh, well, in the face of all these issues that are coming up, we need to sort of be responsible, increase the reserves, be aware of the increased costs that are going to come from things that we've got ongoing, and if we're able to maintain what we're doing, and maybe even, add £1,000 or so here and there on things, or if like Lee says, on the things that we're able to adjust, like the grant, then reduce that. I don't think most of us will sit around the table and go, I asked for this, that.
Well, that's what happened in previous years.
Well, but it seems like at the moment we're thinking about everything.
What we're doing at the moment is we're picking off some of the big items, like the town hall, which is 75,000, and just asking questions.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine.
I think we have to start from a point. We have to be realistic. That the bulk of the precept we've got at the moment is our standard operating cost. That pays the wages, it pays the current bills that we have to pay. And on top of that, which is currently what 570,000 our current precept, on top of that we've got to put the money back into the reserves that the town hall's taken.
Yeah.
So even if we want to just stand still, we've got to put the precept up by at least £100,000 just to stand still and get our reserves back, because we're taking the reserves out to pay for the town hall. Which means that when we look through this list here, I think you can pretty much get rid of all the wish list. £20,000 on a digital notice board, £6,500 on a CCTV system for St Chad's, £20,000 to investigate sources of funding for phase 2. The list goes on to £70,000 to be put aside, £40,000 to support Town Trust in upgrading the solar centre. When you start going through this list, on top of that, what we've got to do to stay level, this is fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think we can pretty much we've just got to tread water. We are stuck at the moment financially, and this wish list it's great to have aspirations. I mean, I would even argue that why are we even budgeted just £10,000 rent to rent our own building to put our staff in? Why are we paying £10,000 to our own community trust to have an office space for our own staff?
The trouble is there is no office space in the town hall for the staff.
It doesn't matter where it is. We own that building. We should just have office space in the solar centre. We should be paying £10,000 a year for it.
We don't own the same centre as a town trust.
No, I think it's a principle, isn't it? You're not negotiating it now.
No,
it's about a general principle there.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with what you're saying, Sean. I think, so to add to that, I absolutely agree with you, and I love the way you put it. We need to put £100,000 in reserves on top of what we spent last year, what we've spent this year, assuming we spend on the same things, which meant much of it is committed as next year. One of my concerns is, and I'm not concerned because I didn't put any suggestions in this year at all, but I am concerned in the way that what we've done is put together, these are the contractual items, and then they've been put on the wish list, but there's things in there that I would have thought should have been part of what I would call our operating expenditure that we would normally have. Things like health and safety, things like training, things like professional and legal fees, things like that. So I think what Martin has said in terms of looking at that other spreadsheet, which is what we spent last year, which unfortunately I haven't got because I had printed it all out, but I haven't brought it with me. If anybody has it, that would be great for that particular spreadsheet.
You mean the real one?
The same as last year.
The same as last year one, yeah.
That page, you can have a look at.
Can I just have a quick look?
Yeah.
So perhaps if we focus on that one, having agreed that, to be honest with you, the reserves probably going to be best at 6 months, and we may have to whittle them down even further. But point is, at least we should be aiming for 6 months and then cutting our coat according to our cloth on what we spend this year. And I think that's got to be the general approach for this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's
If you
good.
try, Michelle, if you put, I've just changed the figures across my 3 scenarios. If you put 100,000 general reserves in essential only, so you're standing still, which I wouldn't recommend you do because it won't go down, it's actually, but the precept stays about the same. On the same figures as last year, 100,000 in your general reserves, it's 17.98 increase.
Guys, I just noticed something here. Which, sorry, Kate's been on holiday for 2 weeks. We haven't had a chance to.
Oh, that's
right. So we have SIL income, 1172. We've just received 30,000 of SIL income, haven't we?
Yes, but it's in October, so it hasn't appeared in
Yes,
September.
right.
We've just had 33,000.
So this will get refined, and we just had, is it 30,000, 23?
33.
I think,
And then another
17,
notification last week,
1700.
there's another 2,500.
1,700.
1,700 is it? Oh, okay.
I mean, we're in danger of going, just going off down this rabbit hole of looking every single line item. I think the first thing we need to establish is, in principle, where do we think we need to go with this budget? And I think, well, I'm certainly, and I think Cheryl's in agreement, that we can really only go with our existing precepts and an increase
In line with
to fill the
inflation.
hole in the reserves.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel comfortable with asking the residents to pay £20,000 for an illuminated sign when we're in this financial situation, and I don't think anyone else would. So I think I'm more interested in understanding the principle where we're going with this before we start looking at, can we save 5,000 here or 10,000 here when we've got 30,000 coming in for the SIL.
Well, that feels like an agreement here, that we've got the recommendations to the
And
council.
also, I think it's worth pointing out to the rest of the council that, for instance, £20,000 for an illuminated sign could arguably be capital as opposed to revenue, and that we could potentially get grants for that and everything. And so I think we need to be really careful about what we're asking residents to pay for. And as you've said already, Sean, it's about overhead costs, and what it costs to run the council has to come first and foremost. Nice to have things that are capital projects, which, by the way, don't forget, we've just moved all our SIL money into general reserves to now go and pay towards the town hall. So thankfully there's some more SIL coming in, which
But the new SIL money,
No, I'm aware of the new SIL money, but that won't go
that won't
to
go
that.
to
But the point is that new SIL money that will come in will register in an earmark reserve for next year that could be used to offset a capital project anyway. But I do think we have to be really careful about distinguishing between capital and revenue, because a precept really should not be paying for capital projects unless there's something very particular like the town hall.
But it's one of the problems, we haven't separated the town hall costs from our general revenue accounts. We haven't separated our capital revenue, and so now we're slowly disappearing off into this route where we've got to try and replace the reserves. We never actually had a meeting to discuss that we should be paying the reserves to pay up the missing money for the town hall in the first place. We never ever had that discussion as how do we pay the shortfalls for the town hall. Should we be doing it through reserves? Should we be doing it through a public works loan? Should we be doing it through the precept? We never had that conversation. We are gradually just taking money, drip feeding money out of our reserves to pay the town hall. So yeah, it should. We do need to try and separate that off, because if we don't, we won't have a clear picture of what our operating costs are without it. So, yeah. I mean, there are some areas, that we do need to. There's another councillor gone.
There are some simple potential recommendations if we look at what we would do to stand still. So, for instance, I think it's already been mentioned, for instance, £20,000 towards grants, 2 lots of 10,000. That could be an area where there's 10,000 that we could potentially. What we could do as part of this discussion is we could say here are some potential areas where we feel that we could potentially look at saving because of that 100,000.
Or identify us, don't go anywhere near
areas,
that.
you
Well,
know,
if we look
there's
at, if you take grant funding, if you take grant funding as an item,
Yeah.
how much do we spend on grants? I mean, apart from the £20,000 that we have to hand out, we've got £15,000 to each of the trusts. That's £30,000.
That's an enormous amount. And Carnival, you know.
And we're paying. And I'm not saying we should or shouldn't be doing this, but then you start looking at £3,000 for a music festival, £8,000 for the town fair, £6,500 for Christmas.
14.
We do need to start looking
About
at.
80, 90,000 in grants.
Okay, so it's a sizable chunk is grant funding. And we need to start exploring whether some of those activities can be funded through things like sponsorship, rather than the town council paying for everything. Most town councils, a lot of those events are sponsored. I know a lot of the Party in the Parks that are on, their events are funded partially, if not all, through sponsorship. So I think we could do more in that respect.
But I also think that we're in a position here, and I think again it's worth noting. My concern at the moment is that it's almost like we seem to be working backwards. It's like the community trust says we want this grant and we want this and we want this to do all of these activities, and then that impacts on the town trust, and then the town trust comes to the town council.
Well,
And my concern is that what we should really be doing is, as we're doing here, saying here is the town council budget, here are the activities we want to do, this is the money that we want to set aside, and then going out for not necessarily town. I'm not suggesting we interfere with the community trust grant and the town trust grant,
yeah.
but if you look at all these other things,
But
strictly speaking, this could be fee for service and go out to tender.
yeah, but I think what you've done, Sharon, is you sort of turned it around. All of those events initially came from a request from the town council to ask somebody, but so to portray it as it's the community just asking for money to put an event on. So all as far as most of them, you know, so the music festival that goes on was originally the Jubilee Festival that the community just was asked to put on. It was successful. They said, well, we can run it again. So the council, only £2,000, and like Sean says, £2,000 from the council, £6,000 from, or more from sponsorship and donations. I mean, that is the one that does it, mostly through sponsorship. Yeah, the Christmas one, again, last year, the council asked the community trust if they would run it and how much you need, and so a lot of these events that are historically the town council asking the community trust. So the community trust could say, do you want to run a Christmas event, or do you want us to run a music event, or do you want us to run a fair? And if the town council says no, we don't want to fund them, then the community trust wouldn't run them, and the community trust has got enough to do running.
But the community trust should be looking for other ways to fund those activities rather than. We're a council. Our primary objective is not to run parties and functions.
No, we're not running them.
No, exactly, but we are, because well, that's the point. We've created a trust, and we give the money to the trust to do them on our behalf. But we're funding it all.
Yeah.
And in the same way as we allocate £20,000 to give away in grants, who are we to decide who deserves grant money? I mean, you know, who am I to, the public give us money and then we play God and say, okay, well, we decided that the Scouts should get money and this charity should get money. Maybe we should leave the money in the pockets of the residents and they decide which charities they want to donate to. It's not necessarily for us 11 to be making that decision on behalf of the public. I don't know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So £20,000.
We represent the public, and that's, you know.
They voted us in to run a council. I'm not sure they voted us in to make decisions on where who we give their money to.
I don't know what the process would be.
That's what the council is here for. It's to work for the benefit of the community in a democratic way. And so therefore, arguably, if we have statutory powers, and we also have powers under legislation that we can do, like we can run certain things. If we have general power of competence, we can do a lot more. So therefore, the fact is we have been afforded those powers, The question is how are we going to exercise them in a responsible manner, and how are we going to justify it in terms of finance and accountability? So I think that certainly making provision for community activities is something that town and parish councils have done since the year dot. So I don't think that necessarily we should say no, we're not going to do it, because I think that power has been afforded to us in legislation. But I agree that perhaps we need to revisit some of these and say what activities can we afford, and also if we are going to ask people to run events, are we going to do it through a tender situation, and are we also going to actually say but there needs to be sponsorship?
Yeah.
There is another alternative, and that is some other councils, they don't actually contract it out, they take it in-house. So for instance, the Winter Festival in Cambridgeshire, we ran it, we had a budget of 7,000, that was what was cost from the preset, but then all the sponsorship that came in, that covered all the other expenditure for what was essentially a big night and a fun fair and everything else. So it's a question of what the town council's priorities are and how it wants to run its operation, because I mean, we do know as a town council here, we actually don't do that much ourselves, you know, and that keeps our overheads down, we contract it out.
But the thing is that what we don't have is enough financial transparency. We move money into a trust. If it stays in the town council, the public can see what we spent under £250, what we spent over £250. It's transparent, it's there for the public. The moment we move that money into the trust, that visibility disappears. And we haven't even got that visibility as town council to understand, so how much revenue is being raised by the trust in terms of rent and renting out buildings and leasing it? And can that income be used for the benefit of these events that we're talking about? I don't know how much it is, but can...
Sorry, I wrote to the three main trusts only 2 weeks ago and said, the budget season coming up, I want an itemised bill of their income for this year to justify why they want the grant and what they want to spend on next year. So not just, I used a carnival as an example a while ago, not just can we have £8,000 to put a carnival on, it's got lots of people out in the streets, list it for road closure, marshals, itemise all those bills, yeah, and then we'll consider, you know, I'm not going to speak to you, but I would suggest you might be minded to if they said, can I have £3,500 because the marshals are £2,000 and road closures £1,500, you go, that's a reasonable spend, yeah? So I've asked them to itemise it, and I've told them they're at risk of just getting a notional sum if they don't provide the information. I've asked that to be done by the 18th of November. So I'll probably give you some the information, financial information you require to make some adjustments on those. Yeah, which is what you've been after for some time, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
And it's a useful exercise for them to do, because I mean that grant for the town festival has been at the same figure for a number of years, which means either it was too high 5-6 years ago, or they're losing money now. Inflationary costs should mean that money should have changed annually, and it hasn't. But I don't know why, because I don't have any figures.
Yeah. I've asked for some clarification because you want to know what they spent last year on gas and lecky, yeah, and you'll make an assumption that it's going to go up 5%, wouldn't it? And you know what's driving that cost. You as a council want to be saying somebody, oh, you've given somebody £25,000, what's it for? You want to be able to list off the top of your head 20,000 of that in nice big chunks, and demonstrate it in touchable things. Yeah. So I've asked them for that information, which might mean, and that's why you can't sort of get into nuts and bolts of some of that, because some of those fundings might be, well actually, you know, you're not trying hard enough to generate some revenue. Yeah, you know, you've got this building, it's got 4 rooms, you're charging £2.50 an hour. Okay, we don't think that's appropriate for you to do. Therefore, you know, so
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it would be much easier when we're looking at this budget if all those were in our budget, not in somebody else's budget, and we could manage them within the overall budget.
But hopefully, like Lee says, within a few weeks we'll have the information, then we can make a decision about, you know, if we feel, you know.
You know, and if you just cut those grants by a small amount each, you know, the pennies making pounds, don't they? Yeah, because you want to say, you know, to your residents, I know what the money's going on. Yeah.
I think we got, yeah, I mean for me, and a different year where we could do more with the budget, I mean my priority would be looking at, like we discussed, youth provision in the town, which is something that affects most people. We haven't got the opportunity because our hands are tied at the moment by this, mainly by the town law. So it's stopping us from being able to achieve any other aspirations that we've got.
Yeah.
And we don't want to so we need to get out of that before the next budget. And then we can start, because I've been on this council for 2 years now, and we've not looked at anything that I considered to be an aspiration of me becoming a town councillor. Because we started off with £80,000 of invoices that we didn't know about that had to be paid in the first year, and then we've been hit with all these extra costs in town hall that weren't budgeted for, and we've been constantly battling this financial battle.
Well, that is the reason why we should kind of dismiss the everything and look at, because we haven't done strategy, we haven't got priorities, we don't got. So.
And I would point out that, I mean, I bumped into our wardens the other day down at Wellerbrook Walk. I mean, that van should have Trotters Independent Traders written on the side of it. I mean, it just, I mean, we should have a professional lease van with the logo on the side. They were using a lawnmower, not dissimilar from the one I used to cut my lawn.
Yeah.
And you think, if we equip them with the right stuff, the right van, the right equipment, they should have to sit on the lawnmower. I mean, and we might actually have to be able to reduce some of our huge costs on maintaining green space if we had the right equipment for our staff.
Well, it's a significant part of what we...
That's going to be one of my suggestions,
Yeah.
because all the way through there are bits and pieces here and there on green spaces.
Yes.
And then when you add that into some of the other expenditure and things like what does it cost anyway for the town warden, to make sure that they can get out properly and for their equipment, and where is the money to be set aside to replace the van? Because if we lose the van, then we're stuffed. You know, that's happened to me before. So I think it's really important that we perhaps look at the overall, and also there's the fact that we may be taking on a longer lease on Wellerbrook Walk. What are our liabilities there in terms of things like flood management and water security and things like that? That's another question that I've raised. So I'm wondering if it's worth putting together all the green space commitments in terms of what we have to pay, currently what we're paying, because if we're contracting out to several people, and saying, is it better? Is there a more cost-effective way of doing this and bringing it in-house? Because I think that sometimes it isn't, but sometimes it is. And I think that as we're starting to expand on green spaces, it's now starting to tip that balance as to it may be more cost-effective.
Well, some of the things like we discussed to do with we get grants for, don't we? So
but also a lot of the green spaces. So the town council pays for all. You know, they pay for Primrose, they pay for Stone Barn, they pay for all of that, regardless town trust or town council land. So the town park is town trust, but the town council pays for the grass cutting there.
Which is precisely my point of view.
But the town trust don't have any money because they would come back to us saying, can we have a grant?
And we need to have a chat about how those trusts do, because what we should be doing. Okay, so when we talk about those businesses, I know they're aligned to our general goals, and it's about the not-for-profit and bits and pieces. But if the town trust asked me to cut the town park, I'd be saying, yeah, you can have my guys, and they're £35 an hour. Here's the bill plus the VAT. Done. Yeah, so we need to unravel that at the course of the next few months.
I think we also need to be looking at, because I think looking at the way that the Charity Commission are now reviewing whether trusts are aligned correctly in terms of how their relationship with town councils, we need to look at that, because I don't know whether, I mean, we've got a trust that looks after the buildings, but it doesn't look after the revenue for the buildings. We have another trust here that rents them out, but the income for that doesn't go back to the town trust. And there's lots of grey areas and overlaps that shouldn't be there. And I think they've lost their identity, these trusts, as to exactly what
the boundaries have become a bit blurry.
They are, exactly.
I think there's a document, isn't there, that's which done about the nature of the trusts and how they work together. But in light of what which we've been working,
we took we had a note at the last council meeting, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we need to have a meeting to discuss that. So I went to a town trust meeting only very recently, and they were talking about the lease with the community trust. And my initial thought was, there's 3 levels of management here for the same piece of land: town council, town trust, community trust. Okay.
Yeah.
To get decisions regards three groups is probably inefficient.
Yeah.
I get the trust bit about people would rather support a trust than the town council, so volunteers, I sort of get that. But I suggested that the Solar Centre, the community trust, should be charging near enough market rates for that to generate all the income. Yeah? From the value of that land. They should pay the town trust the going rate for leasing that property. Yeah? Which means the town trust then wouldn't need us. If the final users are small groups who are struggling to pay the fees of the Solar Centre, then they come and ask us for a grant. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
But it just seems to me that you've got a town trust that's property.
yeah.
That's property, that's managing property, that's renting property, that's leasing property. They deal with everything that is property related. And then you've got a community trust, which is events organising. And if you can separate them two, this trust over here that manages the building should have the income for the building, should be managing all aspects of being a landlord of a building, not passing it over here and muddying the water.
We're picking up their costs.
And the event organisation in the community trust, absolutely. Now, how you move the funding around becomes much clearer.
Well, I suppose the point there was, I'm going to get some more information which will probably allow you greater scrutiny and to pitch the level of that grant funding. I think to get to a place where you want to be is going to take another year. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay? So you just got to see what those costs are. You know, you're going to interrogate them and say, well, don't come asking us for a grant, yeah, because you're in charge of £2.50 an hour for a room. Sorry, £2.50 is a completely wrong figure. Okay, yeah. You can go and work hard for it. Yeah, go and find some sponsorship, etc.
Absolutely.
You know, so hopefully that information you receive, it is. I mean, I've had some positive feedback from the people filling that stuff in to give me that information. Should give you some real justification of that, and you might have a chance to squeeze a bit of that.
Yeah.
You know, and then you might. For one of the things I said to the community trust is, you might want to apply for us for 2 different types of grants. Yeah, one for putting on entertainment. Yeah, and one for basic management costs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there'll be 2 different things. From the entertainment, they list 5 things. You might say, well, you can have a grant for 3/5 because we can only afford to pay you for 3 of those 5 things. That's just an example.
No, and we did change our grant policy, and assuming that we put all grants into our grant policy said that anyone that we grants to needs to come back and explain in detail how they spent the grant that we gave them. And that applies to the Carnival Club, the Scouts, and the community trusts.
Yeah, I think the difference that's happening this year is that previously, historically, there has been no justification at this stage in the proceedings in terms of financial accountability and accounts for these organisations, and we have put in money in the budget for them on no basis, whereas this year Lee has apparently written to them and said we want the accounts now, which I think is really good. But I think the other thing is that because I think that there's 3 things that have come out of this so far. Potentially, I'd like to propose as recommendations. The first is obviously the reserves for 6 months. The second is that we wait for the financial accounts of the trusts and other organisations. Have you asked Carnival as well? Is that right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So before any decisions made by council on the amount of grant funding to award. And the third one, which I've made, is that we re-look in total at the green spaces potential budget and potential liabilities if we take on a long lease on Willow Brook and any other things that are involved.
including
you know,
wages and costs of...
exactly, that we look at it, we get a breakdown of all of it, including at the moment we pay this to so-and-so, at the moment we pay this to so-and-so, but if we were going to do it all in one big thing, or even if we were just going to contract one company to do it, where would there be any savings in there, rather than what seems to be happening at the moment, which is piecemeal contracts being awarded throughout the year.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we don't have one quote as well.
No, Primrose have got a 3-year contract. We're just coming to the end of year 1. Stone Barn actually needs renegotiating because I must be it slipped and net. But they only get it one. We don't only get it once a year. We only go out, for example, when the bin got put in the river. We then had to go. Well, that was an emergency because we had to take the bin out. But most of them is.
Yeah, but I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take a more future strategic-based approach to not just what's going to happen for the budget next year, is how are we going to actually, you know, look at getting the finances into some type of shape so that we're not just standing still every year, so that we're looking at opportunities where we can save money and that we can then grow and then do some of these things that we're aspiring to. Because if we're just going to say, let's start every year with a blank piece of paper, it's not going to work. This council has never had a strategy for financial growth or for putting aside money in specific earmark reserves to generate funds for capital projects for the future and things. That's what it
No, we've been firefighting.
And that's what we need to start.
To be honest, I mean, we did last year. It went up by 19%, and that was almost to get us back onto a level playing field, put some money aside for the town hall redecoration, etc. But those town hall costs have overtaken us hugely and become it's far more challenging than it was envisaged a year ago at the last budget. So we're in the same boat as we were last year because of the town hall. We've got to make sure that we don't carry that over to the next budget and still be fighting issues of costs. I mean, this issue over phase 2.
Well, can we, before we go to that,
but yeah, I mean, as long as we're basically within that.
If the committee is happy with that, can we put that for those?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Sorry, what that bit about the green spaces would require me to do in some very limited time.
Well,
bearing in mind,
add up every single budget line that is in connection with green spaces, because it will be useful to understand what is our total spend on green spaces. First of all, in terms of what we subcontract out, what we pay for in-house, and what the associated overhead costs are, and things like van, petrol, machine maintenance, and so on. And then also what provision we should be making in terms of setting money aside in earmark reserves for things like land replacement, what you feel would be an appropriate sum.
I think
it's just to give us an overall picture.
I think you're right, and I think it's a bigger piece of work than we can do in time for this budget.
Exactly, but
so I wouldn't expect Lee to be able to come up with it. But I think there will be. We need to do the work to understand it. Then we need to look at how we transition from where we are to a different way of doing things, which will require us to invest in equipment and change and look at renegotiating contracts as they come up for renewal. So it's going to be a progression. It's not something we can put into this budget.
No, exactly, I agree. But we need to start somewhere, because if we just ignore it, we're just going to end up in the same place next year.
Yeah. You need to raise it.
I'd like to know. I mean, I can do it myself, but it would be nice to say to the public, and actually, by the way, we're spending X £100,000 or whatever on green space, maintenance, management, and everything else by whatever it is. So that's quite a lot, because actually the green spaces in Southern Norton are very valued and important.
Yeah.
Well, they are, but within that piece of work, we need to understand our ongoing liabilities, because the easiest grants in the world to get are green space grants. You want to build a park, there's plenty of people you can queue up to get grants for that, but they won't give you the ongoing operating costs and management costs. And we've created a lot of green space, which is great and it's appreciated by the public, but we now have to manage it. We have to manage a park and a Willowbrook walk and a garden of remembrance and a river, and we have all this stuff that we have to manage year on year on year. So we need at the same point to understand, where are we with our green space? Have we got too much? Not enough? Are we prepared to put the amount of money into that management that's going to take to keep it going? So it's a long piece of work, and it's not the...
Can I just ask a question, Kate?
Mm-hmm.
The Primrose contract, which is the biggest contract I suppose we have, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's 3 years, it's a 3-year contract,
It's
so
a 3-year
contractually applies,
contract.
so that's non-negotiable with this budget,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's in under town environment, under horticultural labour,
It's mixed because some of it,
I'm looking at cost centre 204, says town environment. It's got the
yes,
wages of the wardens,
but then some of
the
it.
work weather rates, isn't that the cost that Cheryl's after?
No, because some of it is, they do the hedge up for the town park, they do the hedge for the allotments, they cut the grass on the Willowbrook, so it has been split.
Oh, okay, so there's a few items and a few others, but
Yeah,
so all we would need to do then really
so
is...
Stone,
Rather than trying to do the maths now, I think
Yeah.
it's just it's a piece of work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it needs to be part of this budget, but I think it's a piece of work that we need to do as an F&O committee, is
Yes.
first to understand what are we spending in total on horticultural and gardening, and then over the next year, look at how we could revise that and look at and by the time we get to the next budget, say that, I think we do perhaps have to look at the budget in terms of the van and the equipment, because that's a priority for the
Yes.
start.
then where you store it.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question on that? Because we've got in this current budget £5,000 for van allowance on 4051 costing. Is it the intention to journal that over to earmark reserves at the end of the year? To
No one's
earmark
mentioned
reserve
that.
for 5,000, or are you just going to drop it back into general reserves?
No one's mentioned that so far, to put into earmark reserves.
So which line's that?
So
What numbers?
On this
Uh,
budget,
40550 on the I don't know what the
balance.
number is. So it's under expenditure, central services.
Yeah, we've got it.
Yeah. So we've got £5,000 in the budget for this year.
What's this one? 4 or 5?
So basically then, when we talk, all the figures that we've been talking about, there's no plans to journal anything over into any earmark reserves at the end of the year, and the 150 odd thousand that you've stated doesn't include any money going into earmark reserves. Everything
no
goes
one's-
to general
no,
reserves.
because I haven't looked at earmark reserves first, because I wanted to, basically I want to see what we've got left after the town hall, and then you can put stuff into earmark reserves, because if I put money into earmark reserves, say for the van, for instance, or whatever, we might need that for the town hall, because until that last bill comes in for that town hall.
No, I'm sorry, but if we have put £5,000 in the budget this year,
Which
to put towards the van maintenance, we have a choice as to whether or not to say that £5,000, we don't want to drop it
Yes.
back into general reserves, we want to put that into an earmark reserve at the end of the year, so that at least we're starting to save some money. So we have a choice on whether to do that or not.
But
Yeah.
But if you put, say I've got 100,000 left at the end of the year, if I then start putting money into earmark reserves, you're going to have to put up, when you do the budget, your general reserves figure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
But
that
the point
would
is
increase
that
that
it's still got to
figure.
be part of what we're doing. We still have to say, are we therefore not going to spend the 5,000 and drop that into general reserves? Fine. But then what are we going to do next year when the van breaks down? Oh, or we'll take the money out of general reserves anyway.
Yeah.
So to
Well,
my mind, it's like...
Forgive me, so we're saying, sorry,
Well,
I made the assumption that van allowance, 5,000, we're going to spend it this year. I thought that was on just general running costs of the van, is that not right?
Which code are you looking at?
4051.
Which centre?
I think we're in danger of going down to
No,
a level of detail.
Oh,
that-
found it.
Okay. I got your point. I got some questions about that, about...
Yeah, okay. It's the general point, Sean, is that there may be certain things that we feel should go into earmark reserves if the money is left over.
Absolutely. Once we've decided the budget, then yes, there are. Once we've decided the budget, there will be some areas where we'll say, yeah, earmark reserve those because we're going to,
Yes.
even if we're not going to use them for what they've been allocated for on that line, they might get diverted to lease costs for a van rather than maintenance for a van, and
Yeah.
so we just put them into earmark reserve. But I guess that's something we do at the end rather than the beginning. Other than that, I'm happy with what you're proposing. Obviously, I think we agreed that our basic principle is to look at our existing precepts plus
Maximum.
plus the top up for the reserves as our basic principle, and we're, as a committee, we're broadly against the, if you want to call it, the wish list.
Yeah.
Proposal.
Well, not against it. It's just for this current environment, it's not affordable.
Yeah.
You might, yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. No, but sorry, because then you might have a differing view on different ones.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think we are.
There are some, and there are a couple of areas in there that perhaps, the neighbourhood plan is something that we do need to separate out from that wish list because it's income generating, and if we don't start the ball rolling soon, that's been probably a decade in the process, and if we don't look at having a clear plan to have one in place soon, we miss out on the future revenue.
The legislation have reignited theirs and it's just gone out to consultation after 2 years line of more than that, 4 years line of that.
Right.
Well, I think when we have with the discussion, our principle is, as the F&O committee, is that we don't think that's realistic in the wish list one, in the current state of affairs. But so when that goes to full council or it goes to the finance, the budget discussion committee, then there may be, like you said, well, I think this is essential, the neighbourhood plan something for this. So there may be one or two things that come up, and then that's as a council we decide yes or no.
No, exactly.
But our
for
position
me,
here is, you're right.
but for me, the guiding principle of we try and maintain the existing precept plus an increase for the reserves. So going forward, if we do decide we want to allocate some money for a local plan, we're going to have to make some cuts somewhere to accommodate that within that model.
Or you'll review the position on the 1st of April next year when you do know what the general reserve is. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
And also, we look for grants.
Yeah.
So where would you like to take this to the next finance in November? Or do you want to?
No.
It's too early to take it to full council unless you want to take it in November.
Well, you probably can't because you
Yeah,
won't get the grant funding, the
until
grant
next.
applicant's paperwork back. Yeah.
So
We did talk about another format for councillors being involved in the discussion.
Yeah, well, there's still that working groups, so we could get on a Zoom call, couldn't we? Yeah, and talk about some individual items.
I think there's a danger with the budget at this stage by having different factions looking at it separately and then coming together and clashing. I think it's better to organise to have everyone in the room and to hammer it out with all the councillors in the room at the same time.
Yeah.
Can I suggest Lee may say something different, is that we've asked for those figures by the 18th of November. That is the date of the next finance meeting, so we may not get them until the morning, so we will produce what we have. It may be different, obviously we send it out the week before, it may be different. So take it next, this is what you did last year, you take it to the next finance in November. You then take it to the full council, so last year then took it to the full council in December. It then went back to the finance in December because you have to approve it at your full council in January.
Okay. Well, we've rushed it for...
Whether you want the full council
We're
to
doing
look...
it the wrong way round. You see, we have finance after the council meeting. We should go in the finance meeting before the council meeting.
We are. Fine, the council meeting is
So
in 2
whether
weeks' time.
But it's the next, but it's in December.
So whether you want to take this to full council, whether you want them to have 2 looks at it in December and January, or you just give it to them in January and have your January meeting purely budget, because it will have to be approved in January.
Surely we need to agree a draft budget in December and then the tax base gets published
I think
at the end of December, and so January is to then agree the final budget with tweaks to take account of the tax base and agree the
That's
preset.
what you did last year.
Yeah, so we need to have a draft budget approved by council in December. So therefore, because council meets at the beginning of the month and finance meets in the third week of the month in December, we have to do it at finance. We have to do a draft budget to go to council at the November meeting.
I think it's important to, I mean, for me, finance and ops is before full council, because full council is at the beginning of next month, and we're now in the middle of this month looking at the, so it depends how you look at a calendar. So we are
The minutes of this meeting will come to full council.
to full council at the beginning of November.
So the decision we've made.
So the general principle about parking
Yeah.
the desirables, can be discussed there, couldn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you get not specifics, but generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And there'll be some disagreement and bits and pieces,
Yeah.
but you'll narrow it down there, won't you?
Yes.
Exactly. What we need to do, what we're doing is building a model, a cost model here.
Yeah.
And if we take full council agree the principle of our model,
You'll refine it afterwards.
then we've got time then just to refine that and to fine tune.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And by December we should be in a good position. I think in January we have to have a dedicated budget meeting.
Well, why don't you have an ordinary council meeting, the budget meeting at the end of the month? Isn't it more important to get it right?
Well, absolutely, but what we don't want to do is for it to drag over. I mean, this council has struggled before with not.
That's right. The only reason I say that is because we'll have a lot more certainty about the town hall costs, won't we?
Oh, we've had, as things go on, we have a lot more certainty about everything.
Yeah.
That's the trouble. We're waiting for more certainty about the trust, more certainty about the town hall costs, more certainty about the budget that's coming up next at the end of the month. There's always something we're waiting for.
Yeah.
But
the longer you leave it, the less variables are, aren't there? So my point, I suppose, is your town council meeting is scheduled for the first Monday, the 6th of January, isn't it? Yeah?
It is
Well, bear in mind, I'll have to issue the agenda on the 21st of December because there'll be nothing would change. There's only working days. Yeah? And the finance committee would have thought, so there's not a lot of actual working days for things to occur to change.
if we've agreed a draft budget in December, then January's meeting is just ticking off.
Yeah, well, last year you agreed
Yeah, in my world.
80-90% of it, and then there was just about six or seven items we just had to find.
Yeah, and the tweaks because of the tax
Okay.
base.
Yeah.
That's set the preset.
So it was quite, January was actually quite simple, because it had been out, you'd had your major discussion.
You said it
But
might
I think Lee brings up a
later in
really
January.
interesting point, because if we're talking about timetabling,
Yeah.
then we also have to build in the fact that you have to put the agenda out a week beforehand.
Yes.
But you also have to take account of the fact that the clerk is dealing with other meetings and everything, and then has to produce the paperwork and everything else. So I'm still going to say, I still think that we should have finance committee first week of the month to review the previous month, and then the town council meeting is 2 weeks after finance committee,
To swap
which
them
which then provides us with a proper logical order of things.
Right.
And also, it then gives the clerks time to actually move from one meeting to the other.
I think you've got to discuss that separately from here.
Not for here.
And my only point about that would be, in front of you, you've got the 30th of September's end of month, haven't you?
We can't.
We can't do
We
the
can't
30th
do-
of September end of accounts on an agenda on the 7th of October because the month isn't. So if you have it in the first week of the month, the end of month date you get is 5 weeks old, isn't it?
I think exactly, which is my point. We stop working on calendar months.
Yeah.
There is a sequence of, we have a finance and ops, and we have a full council, and a finance and ops, and a full council.
Yeah.
So the sequence is right.
Yeah.
So rather than worrying about it being calendar months, just get
So
the
we talk about
sequence.
this,
Yeah. Okay.
So have we got, is that within the proposals? I think,
Well, I would suggest there isn't really a proposal here.
Yeah.
You've given a general consensus, that you don't think the desirable list is affordable in the current climate, okay, because of some uncertainty about cost of town hall, etc., that you accept that you want to do that which you were doing this year. You know that there will be some inflationary increase, so therefore you're not expecting the precept to go up by any more than roughly in line with inflation. Yeah? Depending on the item. I mean, there are some fixed contracts that aren't going up. Yeah? And that you would wish your general reserve to be at
6 months.
at least 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then say, Lee and Kay, deliver me, go and do your magic, and deliver something that matches those 3 criteria.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah, fine.
That's a budget for a magic wand.
Fun?
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was
But the
thinking.
budget needs to be realistic, of course. I'm not going to change the numbers of the budget.
No.
They're a match. Yeah?
That's fine.
So if you send those guys, and the bits you've talked about, they'll inform us, well, can we shave a bit off here? I know already we've got extra £30,000 to come in for Sil, isn't it? Which helps. Yeah?
Yeah.
You know, there's little bits.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
And also that the grants aren't considered until the finances are coming. The figures aren't set until the finances come, the financial information comes in.
Right.
I think
It's just basically to say to council, oi.
Yeah, a bit of a commentary.
Yeah.
As opposed to this evening.
if you're looking at inflation rate, what's that? 5, 6, 7% at the moment.
Well, it depends.
You are gonna have to have some serious discussions, because the central only, taking out all the wish lists with your 100,000 in your general reserves, is actually minus 2.5, so roughly the same precept as last year. You know, I stick in 20,000, that's going to stick your inflation up for £1 grand. So we've got some serious
But that's,
discussions and work to do.
Yeah. Well, we'll take
Yes,
it.
but what we can do is at least give some general principles, and then we'll have to see what
Yeah.
happens, what that
Because some of the costs won't go up,
yeah.
because there'll be fixed contract prices, yeah? And some of them might go up 10% because we've got a fixed contract for 2 years and it's renewed, yeah? So it won't be everything goes up by 3% or 4%. Some will go by 10%, some might go up by 0%, and 10% of £10 is very little, 1% of a million is a lot. So
But Baines,
it's a general thrust, isn't it, about where you want the target figure.
I am going to be annoyed about Baines because they did it this year. We'd all agreed our budget, and they went, oh, by the way, you've got to pay for Christmas lights. It wasn't in any of our budgets, and I think they'll do that again this year.
But that's why
When they
we
do,
want to
they
help
will
with
give
general
contact
reserve.
details.
And that's why you want the general reserve, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in for, whatever happens, we're in for a rough ride. I mean, even after April, when we've got our new budget and off we go, we still don't know what's coming at us with this town hall. I mean, we've got a better idea. Well, our feet are firmer we've got more firm grounds than we have over the previous year. But there's still, don't forget that the business plan that's been created is full of holes.
It was never been formally adopted.
It can't be, because it just wouldn't work. So we haven't got, we don't know what the operating costs are going to look like. We don't know what the utilities are going to cost. We don't know what the staffing level is going to be, depending on what happens over there. If it's open 7 days a week, from 9 in the morning to 10 at night. So there's a lot of unknowns with that town hall, even once we open it. So we need to be very cautious, and we may need to divert funds from other places if we go with this budget model. We may not have any money for grants even if we put it in the budget. So we don't know what's coming at us.
I agree.
Okay.
Right, good.
I would just like, the other thing, I think we also need to acknowledge the work Kate's done on this, because without all the work Kate's put into this, we wouldn't have the clarity we've got to look at these numbers tonight. So I think we're well for that.
There's a lot of there, yeah, that's good.
Well, Lisa Gurley, you don't thank me in public. But
Yeah.
No, for the minutes.
I'm not
About the minutes.
I haven't put it in the minutes.
Right then, good, thank you. We'll move on to item number 8, which is the date of the next meeting. That is set for Monday the 18th of November at 7 p.m. Everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
And then on to item number 9, which is exclusion of the press and public, goes up to section 1 paragraph 2 of the Public Bodies Act, to exclude from the meeting for the following items of business because of to be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of combination nature of business. So I propose exclusion of the press and public. Is there a second? Chair will second. All in favour?
Sorry, Bruce.
Right. All right. Right. This gives me an opportunity.